Right, there's only one person here on talkSPORT 2 that we can get to talk about the mighty Villa. It's Dan Bardell. How are we, mate?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. Can I just say, from one Midlands club with European heritage to another, can I just say I'm absolutely buzzing for you boys. It must have been amazing. I saw on Twitter that you were there at the game. Where does this rank in your pantheon of Villa Park memories?
Uh, yeah, it would definitely be up there. I think you'd struggle to top that Bayern Munich game, the first one back in the elite competition, and the way they won that game with the Jhon Duran goal, who I'm sure we're going to come on to talking about. I think I'd struggle to say it was better than that because it actually got quite nervy towards the end because Villa, I don't know whether you've ever been to Villa Park, but I don't think there's ever been any phone masts put up around the ground because you struggle to get signal there at the best of times. So trying to keep track of what was going on last night and knowing you're doing your job and you're winning, which is all you can do, but hoping that Atalanta don't go ahead against Barcelona and the players being huddled round on the pitch at the end of the game. It was a little bit nervy towards the end, so probably that affected the celebrations, whereas the Bayern game was just pure relation. But the 4 games at Villa Park to be unbeaten and to have had some of the results that we've had, it has been unbelievable.
I mean, it looks like just an absolutely magic night. Now, before we get on to Jhon Duran, Ollie Watkins, and what's going on there, we've got to talk about Morgan Rogers. I mean, Thomas Tuchel in the stands. He comes in, scores a hat-trick. I think the second youngest English player in the Champions League behind Wayne Rooney to score a hat-trick. He's the first ever player in Champions League history to score twice in the first 5 minutes. Has he been your player of the season? And do you think that he is a nailed-on decision for the World Cup squad?
He wouldn't be nailed on for the World Cup squad at this point, but he's nailed on to get plenty of chances to impress. I think with the way that he's performed in the lead up to the tournament. If you look at where he was a year ago, probably a few people were surprised when Villa took him on from Middlesbrough for around £15 million. He'd only kind of had that half a season of body of work at Middlesbrough, but Unai Emery saw something in him, saw some stuff that he could refine there. Just, I think, identified him as quite a unique footballer because there's not many attacking players who aren't centre forwards that have that physique and that build. And I struggle to say anyone but Youri Tielemans for player of the season so far, I think. But Rodgers is just, in terms of attacking, he's as important as the ones that are being linked with moves away. He just can go past players like he's a rugby player. Players just bounce off him. And he's also got finesse to his game and his output's improved in the last month to 6 weeks. He's starting to pop up with goals. He's crashing the box and getting on the end of things. And I just think there's a few more gears that he can go now, that the belief and the confidence that he must have and the platform that the manager has given him at a big club like Villa to play on the biggest stage. He's definitely, in the first 2 or 3 on the team sheet at this point.
Can I ask your thoughts on the format? So, you mentioned there that the referee blew the full-time whistle. We had all the drama that we saw in the match, Villa doing really well, then sort of throwing it away, then getting themselves back into pole position against Celtic. And then the referee blew the full-time whistle. And there was a load more drama afterwards, wasn't there, while you waited for the result, the Barcelona game to come in. Do you think that added to the night for you? And do you like this new format, or do you think that the old format was overall better?
I've loved the Champions League for a long time, but I've always been a kind of a watcher from afar because my team's never come anywhere near really to qualifying for it. So I always enjoyed the old format as more of a neutral. I think the new format has possibly helped Villa when you look at, Villa finishing in the top 8 and managing to go automatically into the last 16 compared to what Newcastle had to do last year in their kind of first season for a long time back in the Premier competition. I think they were really unlucky, Newcastle, but I think in this format, they'd have probably had a much grander chance of progressing to the last 16. So I've only really got good things to say about the format, but as a supporter of a club in that format, I don't have anything to compare it to really in terms of watching my own team. All I can say is that there's been 4 absolutely huge games at Villa Park. There's been some wonderful trips away where Villa fans have got to go to grounds that they could only have dreamed of a few years ago. It would have been nice to play Bayern home and away, for example. Obviously, we got the job done at Villa Park, but we never got to go to their place in this format. But we've played lots of different teams. We've had some great results. We've had some poor games against maybe the teams you would have expected us to beat as well. But overall, I've been a fan of the format. And I suppose you only have to look at Celtic and, it's given them a real chance of progressing to the last 16, whereas before maybe they'd have got lost in a group of 4.
Absolutely. Well, away from that, Jhon Duran's move to Al Nassr has moved a step closer, with the striker completing his medical in London today. Saudi club's understood to be paying just over 64 million quid for the Colombian, rising to 90 million euros with add-ons. Villa's other star, Ollie Watkins, has also been the subject of a bid from Arsenal. Here's what Unai Emery had to say about the future of those two strikers. Let's start with Duran. What do you think about this, Dan? I've been sort of in talkSPORT Towers all day, and I've heard lots of different arguments about it. An interesting one that I've heard is sort of, is there an argument to say that actually selling a 29-year-old Watkins for a similar amount of money and keeping a 21-year-old with a lot of potential, maybe a lot more time in his legs, then maybe that would have been better? I'm just interested what you think about this whole situation with Duran to Al Nassr.
It's a really difficult one. It was quite a weird scenario last night turning up at the game, because obviously the Arsenal Watkins news broke just before I got to the ground, and the Duran stuff had been rumbling on all day or for a couple of days. I had a pretty good idea the night before that was pretty much happening and that it was a goer. And I'm conflicted with it, really. I think, first off, I think it's him going there is a huge waste of a young striker. I think he's probably better than that. I think he can go and play. If he doesn't want to play at Villa, for example, I think he could go to other clubs and play in high pedigree leagues and high pedigree teams and have a really good career. On the flip side, he's a young boy. He's got a lot of people in his ear, a lot of family in his ear, a lot of advisors in his ear that will all be saying to him, make this move. Money beyond your wildest dreams, tax-free, go and play in Saudi Arabia for a couple of years and your family will be set for a long, long time. Now, this is quite an unprecedented move because we haven't seen a player of this profile really make the move over there. It has been big stars who are in their 30s who are primarily coming towards the end of the career. For Saudi Arabia, it's a huge, huge coup to pull Jhon Duran from Villa. There's no doubting that Duran has been brilliant this season with the opportunities that he's had. He scored a lot of important goals, and those goals have won Villa a lot of points, both in the Champions League and the Premier League. There's definitely things that need refining in his game. He's not the finished article, and when he is on the pitch, if you actually watch Unai Emery, he's tearing his hair out because he doesn't do the things off the ball that Unai Emery wants him to do, and he doesn't do the things off the ball that Ollie Watkins does, and that makes Villa such a good team when they're absolutely playing at their best. Also, the body of work, has he done enough to justify that fee? Probably not. When you factor that in with all the baggage that comes around him and the fact that, he is a bit of a live wire both on and off the pitch, I can see why Villa have accepted it and why they think that this might be better for the general balance and shape of the squad.
Do you think you're going to sign someone else? If you lose Duran, he's been integral to how well you've done this season. You mentioned the importance and the brilliance of the game against Bayern Munich. It was his winner and a glorious winner it was. If he goes, and it's certainly looking like he will, I don't think Ollie Watkins will actually go. But do you think that you need to spend some of that money immediately? Or do you think that there's enough in the squad to launch a serious bid to get back into the Champions League next year? And obviously you have a Champions League campaign to focus on as well.
It's a really interesting one, Rory. I think there's a few factors here, and I've been speaking to people all day about it. And there's no doubt that if Jhon Duran goes, Villa will be active in the transfer market and they'll bring in a forward player. That they've already brought in one forward player in the January window in Daniel Marlon, who I think will be a good addition. He can play as a centre forward. I think I agree with you that Watkins won't go. There's absolutely no chance that Watkins wants to. Well, sorry, not that he was. There's no chance that Watkins will go to Arsenal in January at the same window that Villa lose Jhon Duran. That just won't happen. Villa would be naive to do that, and they won't do that. And I would always champion and support Ollie Watkins, and I would always have him at the club over Jhon Duran. That's just my own personal opinion, despite the age profiles of the player. I think what they'll do is Emery will pick a player that can perhaps play as a centre forward, but it isn't their primary position. I think Ollie Watkins thrives knowing he's the main man. And there's no doubt that since Jhon Duran's been on the scene kind of more so this season, it has affected Ollie Watkins' game. Whereas when he knew he was the undisputed number one, he was playing 90 minutes every week. Look at what he did. Look how many goals he scored, assists he got, and he fired Villa to the Champions League. He hasn't quite been the same this season. I think we'll be coming to Stamford Bridge. I think we'll be wanting to take João Felix. He's a player that Emery loves. He's a player that Villa wanted in the summer, and he obviously chose to go to Chelsea. He isn't getting anywhere near enough football at Chelsea. There's arguments that move was purely PSR based with the Conor Gallagher move the other way as well. Villa will try and get him, I think, and then they've then got two players that are capable of playing in Watkins' position in a different way, but so that it doesn't leave them short, and those two players can also play with Watkins. That's what I think they'll do.
Dan, just quickly before we break, another part of the sort of Villa conversation today has been around whether or not Arsenal's bid just hours before the game was disrespectful or poorly timed. What do you make of that as a Villa fan?
I'm speaking to someone today. The bid, I think, came in on Monday. It just didn't make its way into the mainstream media until Wednesday evening. I don't know whether that would be planned on Arsenal's side, whether there's some shifty behaviour at work, but it didn't affect Watkins. Yes, he missed chances, but he had a very, very good game last night. And I know people will criticise the chances that he misses, but all I would say to that is, you know, those chances don't come to other strikers. He puts himself into so many good positions, works so hard for the team, got an assist last night as well as a goal, was unfortunate falling over for the penalty. I honestly don't think it ended up affecting Ollie Watkins. The two of them obviously had transfer speculation whirling round. It's telling that one of them played 90 minutes and one of them didn't come off the bench at all.
There you go. Dan, thanks so much for coming on. Great to speak to you. Congratulations on another cracking night at Villa Park.
Cheers, boys.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.